Coming up in our newscast tonight, Seoul announced plans to shut down a foundation for victims of wartime sex slavery set up in 2015 as part of an agreement with Japan. The deal was considered controversial as it doesn't reflect the wishes of the victims, nor did it come with a formal apology by Tokyo. Seoul and Washington's new working group on North Korean affairs holds its maiden meeting. Key discussion topics included technical aspects of inter-Korean railway and road projects, such as ways to work within the boundaries of sanctions. President Moon Jae-in held a meeting with the heads of presidential commissions and advisory groups. He emphasized the need to push for inclusive growth and build an inclusive nation. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Choi. Back in 2015, the nation's previous administration agreed with Japan to set up a foundation funded by Tokyo to support Korean victims of wartime sex slavery. The decision was met with strong opposition as it was made without the surviving victims' consent and did not include a formal apology from Japan. The Moon Jae-in government has been trying for months to scrap the agreement, and a formal announcement was made today to shut down the controversial foundation. Park Hee-jun has our top story.
The Ministry of Gender Equality and Family announced on Wednesday that the government will dissolve the Reconciliation and Healing Foundation, also known as the Comfort Women Foundation. The foundation was first established in a bilateral agreement with Japan in 2015 under the former Park Geun-hye administration to financially support the victims and their families. Japan provided funding of 1 billion yen or $8.8 million. However, the foundation was controversial from the very start. While Tokyo has claimed that the agreement is enough to completely settle the issue of comfort women, critics of the deal have called it unilateral and say it doesn't reflect the wishes of the victims nor come with Japan's apologies. Gender Equality and Family Minister Jin Sun-mi says the decision to disband it was made to prioritize the victims' interests and that the ministry will continue its efforts to recover their honor and dignity. Following the announcement, the ministry will push forward with the legal procedures required for the shutdown. It will also work with Seoul's foreign ministry to return the fund provided by the Japanese government. While the decision is being welcomed across the nation, it has prompted immediate criticism from Japan. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said the 2015 agreement was final and irreversible. He also called for South Korea to act responsibly, warning that bilateral relations cannot be sustained unless international promises are kept. In response to this, Seoul's foreign ministry says an agreement that does not reflect the opinions of the victims cannot be a real solution. And it says the government will continue to work toward reaching the right resolution to heal the wounds of the victims. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington's new working group on North Korea officially launched on Tuesday. Members were to touch on a number of agendas on Pyongyang affairs. What stood out the most was talks on inter-Korean cooperation, including the road and railway projects, which was met with positive response from the United States. Lee Ji-won has the highlights from that session.
The U.S. says it strongly supports the inter-Korean project to link railways and roads. That's according to South Korea's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs Lee Do-hun, who spoke to South Korean reporters after holding the first meeting of the newly established working group on Tuesday. At the first round of meetings, U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun allegedly said that Washington supports the project, adding that it is not a matter of getting approval from the U.S. There was a widespread view that the inter-Korean projects, including the rail and road links, are much more developed than the denuclearization talks, leading to concern by Washington over the joint efforts to continue sanctions on the regime. A senior South Korean official familiar with the working group added that the two sides exchanged a lot of details on the technical aspects of the project, including how to work it out within the framework of the sanctions. He also said that everything else has been settled and that the South Korean government maintains its goal to have the groundbreaking ceremony for connecting and modernizing railways and roads within this year, as agreed in the Third Inter-Korean Summit in September. The official also added that the first meeting covered all of the working group's goals: cooperation in diplomacy, denuclearization efforts, the implementation of UN sanctions, and ways in which the two Koreas can work together within the framework of such sanctions. The two sides allegedly exchanged developments on the ongoing North Korea-US talks and the next steps they should take as well. And on the postponed high-level talks between U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and his North Korean counterpart, the official said it is still being discussed and that Washington hopes to go through with the second Kim-Trump summit early next year. The South Korean and U.S. officials agreed to hold the working-level meeting more regularly to further improve their coordination. 이지원, 아리랑 뉴스.
Starting Thursday, the two Koreas will be connected via road network in the demilitarized zone. According to military sources, the 12-meter-wide path connecting Seoul and Pyongyang sides of the DMZ will be completed on Thursday morning. The road is located on Arrowhead Hill, or 화살머리 고지, one of the fiercest battlefields of the Korean War. It will be used for an inter-Korean project to recover war remains next year, and the area is currently being cleared of mines. The joint recovery and road construction were part of the comprehensive military agreement between the two Koreas signed at September's Inter-Korean Summit. Seoul plans to spend $1.2 million on forestry cooperation with Pyongyang. According to the nation's unification ministry, South Korea will be using this money to buy chemicals for controlling diseases and pests and to carry them into the north. Such a move is permissible under UN sanctions. The spending will be covered by Seoul's Inter-Korean Cooperation Fund. Along with that, the nation will spend almost $980,000 on jointly excavating cultural relics at an ancient palace site in North Korea's border town of Kaesong. Plus, Seoul will spend $830,000 to fix military communication lines along the West Sea and $650,000 to buy equipment to be used in the joint search for the remains of the two sides' war dead in the demilitarized zone. Following a week-long hiatus, the parliament is finally back on track. National Assembly Speaker Moon Hee-sang and rival party floor leaders finally shook hands as they agreed to break the deadlock. They will review next year's budget plan and hold a probe into a hiring scandal. Kim Mo-kyun has the latest from the domestic political arena.
After two separate negotiations on Wednesday, National Assembly Speaker Moon Hee-sang and the floor leaders of Korea's five main political parties agreed to bring parliament back to life and end a week-long boycott by some opposition parties. Speaking to reporters after the closed-door meeting, the speaker and the floor leaders shook hands, claiming that a groundbreaking agreement has been reached thanks to close cooperation and consideration from the rival parties.
Starting Wednesday, all parliamentary standing committees, including the Budget Committee, will resume operations.
In the talks, the ruling Democratic Party accepted the demand of the main opposition Liberty Korea Party and the centrist Parliamentary Party that Parliament launch a probe into a hiring scandal at a subway operator.
We will launch an overall parliamentary probe into the hiring process at public organizations once the regular session is over, and we will plan for it in a plenary session in December.
Regarding the subcommittee dealing with the budget and the contentious point of who will be on it, the main opposition Liberty Korea Party gave in to the demands of the ruling party that it include a lawmaker who is not part of one of the negotiating blocs. Lawmakers also agreed to hold a vote on several pending bills related to people's livelihoods that have been delayed by last week's cancellation of the plenary session. With the latest agreement, all eyes are now on whether the government's budget for next year, worth roughly $420 billion, will be passed by the legal deadline of December 2nd. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in is calling for his officials to do more to create an economy that includes everyone, his so-called inclusive growth policy. The South Korean leader emphasized that it's not only something South Korea needs to do and that the rest of the world is on board as well. Shin Se-min shares with us his remarks.
President Moon Jae-in says the administration's push to establish inclusive growth requires more effort, and he says it's a challenge for other nations as well. In a meeting with the heads of presidential commissions and advisory groups, including the Commission on Policy Planning, the president said the government needs to build an inclusive nation as part of a big national policy plan, which each commission has helped lay the groundwork for. And the president highlighted that the push for inclusivity isn't limited to Korea.
특별히 하나 더 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 지금 우리가 이 포용적 성장, 또 지속 가능 발전, 사람 중심 뭐 이렇게 고민하고 있는데 이것이 대한민국에서만 또는 문재인 정부만 무슨 특별한 가치로 우리 고민하고 논의하고 있는 것이 아니라는 사실입니다. 동시대적 고민이라고 할까? 국제사회 세계 모든 나라의 공통된 고민이고 공통된 관심입니다.
Moon added that Korea's success in achieving inclusive growth could set an example for the world and urged each committee to keep in mind that the goals they're working to actually carry out are precisely what other countries are talking about doing. As part of the goal of building an inclusive nation, the Moon administration has been working to tackle economic disparity by boosting the minimum wage, pursuing fairness in the economy, and helping small and mid-sized enterprises prosper together with the big conglomerates. The president referred to the multilateral meetings he's attended in Europe and elsewhere in the Asia-Pacific region, also the upcoming G20 summit and next year's APEC summit. An overlapping area of interest among countries around the world, he said, is building a foundation of fair and lasting progress with the people at the center of it. 신세민, Arirang News.
South Korea continued its drive to deregulate the economy in line with the Moon administration's goal of innovative growth. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon proposed 3 approaches to deregulation. Cha Sang-mi outlines what they are.
South Korea is actively pushing to deregulate in order to help new industries prosper. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon chaired a meeting Wednesday about deregulation at the state-funded Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute in Daejeon. The participants, including the trade and science ministers, discussed ways to drive innovative growth by commercializing new technologies. Examples include allowing the use of GPS for taximeters and abolishing overseas remittance standards for fintech companies. Normally, taximeter relies on a sensor attached to the car's transmission to calculate the distance driven, but when the rules are changed, cabs will charge using smartphone GPS. This will prevent rip-offs and make it more convenient for the drivers as well. Overall, for deregulation, the Prime Minister suggested 3 main approaches. First, the change from positive to negative rulemaking. That's to say that in the past, government has laid out the things that are allowed and restricted everything else. But now it would specifically ban some things and permit the others. Next comes preemptive deregulation. The PM said Korea needs to get rid of regulations ahead of time when problems are foreseen, especially in the tech sector. For instance, predicting the problems and challenges of putting self-driving cars on the streets. Finally, he mentioned tailoring regulations to actual needs on the ground. For instance, showing some leniency when a company wants to build a factory, but the environmental rules wouldn't normally allow it. The PM noted that nearly 1,600 regulations have been removed since the current administration took office, and stressed that cutting red tape in the tech realm will be what helps local businesses go global. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, total amount of household debt, which includes loans and credit card spending, continues to inch up here in the nation. It surpassed $1.33 trillion in the 3rd quarter, driven mainly by a rise in mortgage loans. Ko Roon-hee breaks down the numbers for us.
The total debt of Korean households continues to grow, but more slowly than in the past. According to Bank of Korea on Wednesday, total household debt in the 3rd quarter came to more than $1.33 trillion, marking an increase on-year of 6.7%. The central bank attributed the hike to a rise in mortgage loans, which jumped by more than $7.6 billion from the quarter before. Still, it was the slowest rise in overall household debt since the 4th quarter of 2014, and the percentage increase year-on-year has fallen for 7 quarters in a row. The BOK attribute part of the slowdown to the government's policies to reduce household debt, including stricter loan screening rules announced in November last year. But this doesn't mean the overall situation is improving.
Because of the government's policies to curb household borrowing, it's been rising more slowly on year. But the overall burden is growing because household debt is still rising faster than the nation's income.
The BOK added that households' disposable incomes grew by 4.5% last year, which is slower than the recent debt growth. Separate data from the Bank for International Settlements show Korea's household debt accounted for 95.2% of the nation's GDP at the end of March this year. Local experts also paint a grim picture.
Throughout the year, money owed by households to non-bank lenders has increased, and loans for private businesses are also rising. This means financial risks still exist.
Meanwhile, the central bank says the effect of the measures the government introduced in September to stabilize the overheated housing market will be reflected in next quarter's report. 고른이, Arirang News.
The government has been trying to reduce South Korea's working hours, some of the longest in the world. But the push to expand flexible work arrangements to help businesses deal with cutbacks has angered union workers. An estimated 160,000 of them went on strike today. Woo Soo-young provides an in-depth analysis of this issue.
At this furniture factory in Incheon, about 90 builders work around 12 hours a day when the orders flood in towards the end of the year. But come 2020, when legal hours are reduced to 52 a week for small and medium firms, the furniture maker worries it will have to cut back on orders unless it can make use of more flexible work arrangements.
I think expanding the flexible work hour system could help us cope with peak and off-peak seasons.
The government introduced a shorter work week policy to tackle South Korea's notoriously long working hours. The flexible work arrangement system aims to help firms optimize manpower by letting them increase hours during busy periods and cut back when there's less work, as long as the hours average up to 52 a week over a 3-month period. But businesses and conservative parties say 3 months isn't enough to make up for lost productivity, especially when SMEs are already reeling from chronic labour shortage and the minimum wage hike this year.
Competitive firms that are expanding abroad won't be able to run their factories normally or add to the economy due to the restrictions. They need more flexibility. Our study on 2,000 firms found that peak seasons average 5.6 months. This would require an adjustment period of about a year.
Reflecting their concerns and cases from other countries, the government is considering extending the adjustment period. However, umbrella unions are furious. They say more flexibility would only normalise longer hours of work without overtime pay and put workers' health at risk. They say a 6-month base period could reduce annual income by roughly $700. Tens of thousands of unionised workers staged a strike on Wednesday. Amid the rift, experts say a rational discussion is needed between unions and firms to minimise costs and losses for both sides.
The government can provide a framework, but unions and firms should decide freely how much flexibility is adequate based on the nature of their industries, whether it's 3, 4, 6 months or longer.
The issue is expected to be the main talking point for a new Presidential Advisory Council on Economic, Social and Labour Affairs when it launches on Thursday. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News.
Interpol has appointed a South Korean national as its president. The decision was made after members rejected a Russian frontrunner amid accusations Moscow has been abusing the global investigative body. Choi Si-young gets us up to speed with the developments.
On Wednesday, at its 87th session of the General Assembly in Dubai, Interpol's 194 member states elected Kim-Jong-yang as the agency's new leader. Russian candidate Alexander Prokofchuk was widely tipped to win the presidency, but concerns from the United States and countries in Europe that Russia may have abused the police agency tipped the scale toward Kim. Kim is the first Korean national to serve as the head of the investigative body. Born in 1961 in South Korea, he passed the country's national civil service exam in 1985, assuming a managerial position at the government. He rose to become chief of the Gyeonggi-do Provincial Police Agency in South Korea, one of the most senior ranked positions in South Korea's national police agency. He then served as the vice president of Interpol from 2015 to 2018. Kim will cover the remaining 2 years left in former President Moon Hong-wae's term, who Beijing confirmed has been detained and investigated for allegedly taking bribes. Headquartered in France, the international investigative body is governed by the General Assembly, which meets once a year to draft policies and elect its president and executive committee members on a one-country, one-vote basis, with each vote carrying equal weight. Kim will now chair the General Assembly and Executive Committee sessions. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
Anamorphic paintings. They show distorted images that can only be viewed properly from a certain angle. The world's largest such artwork can be found here in the nation. Kan Young-woo takes us to South Korea's Peace Dam, which made it to the Guinness World Records.
The Peace Dam, the northernmost dam in South Korea, has become a canvas for the world's largest anamorphic painting, which covers some 4,700 square meters on the downstream side of the dam. The painting looks distorted when viewed from different angles, but it looks like an open gateway to the opposite side of the dam when viewed from the front. The artwork shows what's on the other side of the dam, the upper part of the river close to the military demarcation line separating the two Koreas. With a pair of stone dragon heads appearing to hover over the gate, the anamorphic artwork stands 95 meters tall and 60 meters wide. The top of the dam has also been painted to resemble traditional Korean castle walls. The painting, provisionally titled Gateway to Unification, has been listed in the Guinness World Records as the world's largest anamorphic painting.
We expect this area to become a famous tourist site that anyone can enjoy. On top of that, as inter-Korean relations have improved recently, we are sure that the dam will be recognized as a symbol of peace.
The Peace Dam is not the only attraction in the area. The World Peace Art Park near the dam contains old tanks and fighter jets that are decorated with colors that represent hope for a peaceful Korean peninsula. The World Peace Bell set up at the top of the dam is made from empty cartridges recovered from nearby Korean War battle sites and used bullets sent from other conflict zones around the world. The Peace Dam area is now open to public, and the Korean Water Resources Corporation says it plans to finish building camping facilities before the end of the year. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News, Hwacheon.
Before the 2018 Winter Olympics, tensions between the two Koreas continue to escalate. Even a military confrontation seemed likely. Looking back at the PyeongChang Games some 8 months later, experts say the event helped create new possibilities on the peninsula and got the two sides on the road to peace like never before. Won Jung-hwan explains further.
Despite concerns about whether South Korea could successfully host the biggest Winter Olympics in history, the overall verdict was job well done. As the anniversary approaches, key stakeholders in the event met in Seoul on Wednesday to recognize the people who made it possible and to highlight again the Games' many successes. Those at the meeting agreed that PyeongChang 2018 and North Korea's participation led to outcomes that were more than merely symbolic.
We cannot talk about peace on the Korean peninsula without the PyeongChang Olympics. Because the Olympics symbolize peace, the Games played a significant role in laying the foundation for peace between the two Koreas. They even resulted in South Korea and the US postponing their joint military drills.
People around the world have seen the images of reconciliation of the two Koreas marching as one in the opening ceremony, of a unified women's hockey team bawling its eyes out after its last game and saluting fans with the singular chant, Korea. PyeongChang 2018 truly opened new horizons. And according to the chair of the Games Coordinating Committee, now is the time to keep fostering that peaceful momentum in sports, with Pyongyang now involved in the international arena like never before.
And actually next week we have a General Assembly for all the 206 Olympic committees in the world in Tokyo. And we have a big delegation coming from North Korea and being part of the preparations for the Games. I hope a lot of things will happen between now and 2032.
The two Koreas are also set to pursue a joint bid to host the Olympic Games in 2032 in anticipation of long-term peaceful cooperation. Experts say that, until then and beyond, PyeongChang 2018 should serve as a testament to the Olympic spirit of peace. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, after the rain, a cold front is expected to pull down the mercury even further.
That's right, Daniel. The rain should clear up by tonight nationwide. And although tomorrow will generally be sunny, significantly colder air is expected to move in tonight. Beijing and Pyongyang will be under sunny skies, while Tokyo will be overcast but warmer. And lots of areas will start out below freezing, about 5 to 9 degrees lower than this morning. Seoul dropping down to -3 degrees Celsius, Daejeon at -2, and Chuncheon at -5 degrees. The daily highs will be above zero, but 3 to 4 degrees lower than today's, putting Seoul at 7 tomorrow. Busan and Jeju still reaching double digits though. Now the cold weather will be continuing until Saturday, and from Sunday the mercury should come up a few notches, and also rain is likely going to return for Saturday on the central region. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you in tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. Thanks for staying with us. Good day or good night, depending on your time zone.